make sure you bring your AR. Make sure you bring your Glock.
Yeah, I'm going to walk into a school with an AR-15. That's a great idea.
Tell us a new story about Alex. Enlighten us about something you've learned when you grew up.
Oh, when I grew up?
Well, you're still growing up, but just like in the process of.
Learning how to, which we've said before, be patient and not be so aggravated. Because I actually shared a story earlier on my Facebook page because I've seen the evolution of my brother, who me and him we had a lot of anger issues. We were always into something. We always enjoyed getting into fights or getting into arguments. And I remember when I was in the 4th grade, the elementary school I went to, it was our side, and then the 6th through 8th grade. Well, during
I don't know, tried to beat you up as a 4th grader.
Yeah,
but he was a 6th grader and he fought for you. So
yeah,
took your back.
So I started realizing that how does that carry? You follow me a lot, don't you? Okay, thank you, man. I appreciate that. But I learned that how you evolved and the people around you make you who you are. I believe that. Like, if people want to know why they're not doing good, or if they're doing stuff that may not be the right thing, look around the people who are around you. Because, I mean, even in 4th grade, I remember my friends that were egging me on to pick the fight. And then you fast forward. I mean, obviously for me and for him also, 40 years later, you find the people around you and how they impact you that, it makes a difference. I mean, I'm pretty sure that you can think of a group of friends that you're like, maybe I shouldn't be hanging out with them.
So if you're surrounded by purely bad examples only, is it impossible to live uprightly?
It's not impossible, no. Like, you can make a change and make a difference. I mean, just was it this last week or the weekend before, unfortunately, the parade in Kansas City, that literally, even though what it was advertised as or what it was shown as, it was literally people arguing with each other because they didn't like each other. It was a dispute that ended up, one person dead, 22, 23 people injured over a dispute. And it was 2 people basically arguing with one person who I'm pretty sure that if there was 2 people, one of the persons were probably egging on the argument or egging on that. So, I mean, even just in recent times, you look at who's standing next to you or who's doing that. I mean, how many robberies that are going on, like those smash and grab robberies that are going on, through all these stores? How many of them are just one person? There's multiple persons. So that's what I look at as like an example of the circle that's around you. So can it affect? Yeah, I think it totally has a big effect on with it. I haven't gotten to a good squirrel. I haven't gotten to a good squirrel. What's that word called? Squabble? Is it
squabble or quarrel?
Quarrel, yeah. I haven't got one in a long time because I look at the people around me that, it doesn't happen. I mean, you just came back from basically almost like a missionary trip in Nigeria. Would you have? What do you mean almost?
It wasn't a full mission trip.
Well, I mean, it was close enough to do more than what a lot of people will do
here. It was a
here.
mission trip.
So I definitely want to give you your props and commend you ahead of time and tell you in person. That's amazing what you would even consider doing. I wouldn't do it. So I respect that. But if you had negative people around you, you wouldn't have done that.
I don't think it's the positive people or the negative people around me that got me to do that.
But do you think it was honestly just you as Michael? You were like, I would have done that by myself if this opportunity didn't come about.
Well, just the opportunity came about, but I don't think it's strictly based on good or bad people.
No, I'm talking about but the people around you though.
Yeah. I mean, because of my people I hang out with, like church-wise or whatever.
Right. I'm saying the positivity of it. Like, if you had people around you that if this opportunity came out and maybe you yourself internally wanted to do it, but you had negative people around you, like, Michael, that's stupid. Don't do this. It's dangerous. You're going to get killed, blah, blah, blah. You're going to be eating stuff out of the bushes.
I had people tell me that. They were concerned for my safety, and I had an employer that was concerned and didn't want me to die, and cautioned me to not go with a newborn, and those sorts of things. So I wouldn't say they're bad
with a
people.
newborn at home.
Yeah, with a newborn at home.
I'm taking your newborn to
No, I wouldn't do that.
That would have been dangerous.
I would take my wife with me. I feel confident in the safety and all that over there, but I wouldn't take my newborn. So I probably would want to wait until my kids are out of the house before I take my wife.
But
So I see what you're saying, because we're told even biblically that evil communication or evil associations will corrupt good morals, right? So being around the wrong types of people will eventually have a bad impact on you, generally speaking. There's also examples in Scripture, like Noah obviously was saved from the worldwide flood because he was the only righteous man left on earth that God looked out and saw, right? And so it's possible to do what's right regardless of peer pressure and all those sorts of things, but for sure opportunities like that, or even where each of us are in life, we can speak to the fact that it took good people being a positive influence on us as well, right? You didn't just learn to live right by yourself just by chance. It took good people probably investing in you, generally speaking. So
Which one brings up the question: is it nurture or nature? Are there people who are born just evil, or are they nurtured in an environment to then breed evil behavior?
Yeah, I've always believed in nurture, even during
versus
my
nature
psychological class. Yeah, only because of the fact that I still cannot believe a newborn child can be evil. It has to be taught. It has to be grown. It has to be seen. They have to mimic. They have to see the environment. But I generally, deep-heartedly don't believe that. Yeah, no, I don't think that they're born that way. I mean, even if you look at a lot of, I enjoy watching a lot of documentaries on even like serial killers, and they show their upbringing. I mean, probably 95% of them are
rough childhood.
Yeah, rough childhood. I mean, how many here who grow up with a supported, loving parents of both, they have a good environment, they have good friends, that all of a sudden decide to do something, crazy. Now, there are instances like that, but the chances of it happening, no. But before I forget, it's just kind of the same thing with Jonathan enrolling into the military. Obviously, we know there's positivity and negativity going into the military, but I'm pretty sure that people that are surrounding you, that are around your group, and the different tests you go through, that they want to be there and they want to. They're defending our country, so I think it's the same thing as kind of what you're doing. Is like you have to look at the people around you, the decision you're making. I still think it has an impact. You weren't born to be in the military. I don't believe that. You weren't born to go, on a missionary trip to Nigeria and do what you do. It was kind of taught, and it was kind of brought about, and it was kind of in there. If you don't agree, then that's their opinion, but I think
we're all born ultimately to do good.
Right.
I think we're all born to seek what's right, to do what's right, to love God, love our neighbor. Those basic things we talked about. But it's very easy for people to fall away from that. That doesn't take away your free will in all of that. Michael's born to do good things. Michael's born to spread the gospel, to preach, and to all those sorts of things that he's called to do. But he can do that in the States. He can do that in Nigeria. There's decisions to make along the way to try to do that most effectively. But going back to decisions or whatever, almost any important decision I've ever made in my life has been highly contested. I don't know that you're ever at a crossroads and everybody's just going to agree with the decision you make. That just doesn't happen. My wife worked, and people would make comments that she must not care about her home enough, or she must not care about her child enough to stay home with them. Then she started staying home. And then we've got the opposite comments that now she's just the trophy wife, and now she gets everything handed to her. Either way, somebody's going to have a problem with it, right? You just have to make decisions. And, we could walk back through any of our lives and at any major decision, you could see how it would have been really easy to go another way. Everybody's got an opinion and all those sorts of things. But at the end of the day, I think we have free will. God's got a general will for all of us, which is he wants us to seek him and seek good over evil. And I agree that children are not born evil. And I think that's even biblically backed in the sense that Jesus talks about the innocence of children, how we should strive to be like children, not because they were born evil, but because they're innocent, because they're uncorrupted and those sorts of things. We can't necessarily get the naivety of a child back, but we can achieve the innocence, the purity of a child. But that's by our choice, because now we know we're no longer ignorant.
So what do you, with that thought or point or wavelength, how do you take the verse in Proverbs that says foolishness is bound in the heart of the child?
I think foolishness creeps into all of us at some point, And a child, like you said, they're going to mimic their environment, right? And so you see it. There's little 2-year-olds running around cussing because their parents cuss in the home, right? There's little kids who are beating up on people because they get beat up at home, Right. So that stuff happens. Do I think that's because the child has an evil heart? No, I think that's because the child's responding to the environment around them. And to some extent, a child, because they are ignorant, they're going to be pushing boundaries and they're going to be trying to figure out the world. And in that, you're going to have to drive away some foolishness that starts to creep in, via discipline and all those sorts of things. But I don't think that's day one. I don't think they're born with foolishness.
Yeah, because even though you see some news outings and some documentaries where kids they're given a rifle when they're 5 or 6 years old, and they're told, okay, these are the people you need to shoot. These are the people you kill. I mean, and there's places out in the world are like that. There's no way that they were actually born to automatically thinking, all right, I'm going to take a rifle and I'm going to kill my enemy. They're taught that. They're showed that. They're instructed that. And they're, just like they always say, kids pick up on everything that you say. They, you mimic. I mean, even for me, I have to actually pay attention to what I'm saying when, your son's running around the gym, and we all know that sometimes I might have a foul mouth or one or two, but I have to be conscious of it because he can pick up on it really fast. But, he learns, he mimics what he sees. I mean, he's practicing doing a deadlift because he sees you. I mean, that's just the best example of what a positive role model, a positive influence can do. Because he can pretend to do a squat, he can pretend to do a deadlift. He's not even 2 years old. So you can't tell me that a kid is out there at 6 years old, has a gun, and they were born evil and they're killing people. There's no way. It's no way. There's no way. Especially when you have a young one at the house now. You've even said it before. You know that your actions, your demeanors is what's gonna, lead him to be the man that.
I agree, and I met my biological father when I was in my 20s, and I never met him before that. So I spent 20-something years creating this, not me creating, but me being influenced and me having this certain character, likes and dislikes or whatever, and then I met this guy for the first time, and I'm telling you, it was like looking at an older version of myself, which was odd. So there were some characteristics and some behavior type things and some interests in just the world that we shared that commonality, and I had never spent a day in my life with this man. That's crazy. Which I thought was real wild, which goes back to the nurture, nature argument.
But how do you feel, and I mean, obviously I don't know anything about your biological father, but if maybe he was not as good of a person, or, maybe he just had a checker pass, do you think you would have been affected by it? I mean, because you're saying that how do I question it? Because you're saying that y'all had a lot of similarities, and you had never, you hadn't talked to him for 20 years. I guess you can say, do you feel that he was a good guy? Like, in his present time, in his moment, in his life, do you feel like that was somebody that you could sit back and say, I look up to him?
I mean, my takeaway with that was just getting to know him. I mean, whether he was a good person or a bad person, that wasn't a thought. I just wanted to know who he was. You know, some people said, "Are you afraid to meet him?" I'm not afraid. Are you
That's
mad?
crazy.
Are you mad to meet him, or are you going to be upset with him? I'm like, no, because had those decisions been made differently, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. And even though they may have not been decisions I would have made, those are decisions he made, but those decisions got me to where I'm at today. What if he stayed in the picture? What if he stayed with my mom?
Change.
I would not be in America. I'd probably be in Germany still, you know, and then I wouldn't have my wife and I wouldn't have my children. I'd have a different wife, where I would have never gone to church. You know, there's all those scenarios that run through my mind. And so am I going to blame him? I'm not mad at the guy, you know.
I think that's a great outlook. I think if that outlook would be adopted by a lot of people because obviously, you know, you're not the only person, and that happens, you know, millions of times here in the United States. I think that's a great outlook to have to be able to do it, because I've had friends that personally like, no, F that, I don't want to meet him. Oh, he left us. But like you said, I mean, if he did not make his decisions, you wouldn't be in the situation you are now. So,
and I had family counsel and said, hey, I met my biological father. It's not a good idea.
Yeah,
you need to be careful of that. But their experience was different. Their experience was not a good experience, and so I made the decision for myself. Kind of what Jonathan was saying a second ago. He's got a spot where he just needs to make his own decisions. He needs to glorify God in doing those things. He's not trying to glorify man. You know what people want. He makes one decision for his wife over here, and people are upset, and some people are happy. And then he changes that decision, and some people are upset, and some people are happy. So you're never going to make everyone. You just got to make the decision that glorifies God and move on. I mean, I had to learn that too, and it was just I was trying to make everyone else happy, and I was just like, that's not what this is about. It's making him happy. And when you do that, everything else will fall in line. It looks different for everybody because you have different walks of life, different influences, different nurtures, you know, those sorts of things.
Well, it makes me wonder because, you know, for instance, my whole family is very musically inclined. My mom sang her whole life, had a beautiful, gorgeous voice. My dad sang. All my siblings sing. Obviously, I went into music. My sister teaches music. So it makes me wonder for someone like my son who's adopted, totally different genetics. I wonder if he'll be into music, you know, because he'll be nurtured that way. I mean, he's going to grow up in a house with 6 guitars and 3 pianos, hearing Dad sing in the studio all the time.
I agree. That's actually a really
It'll
good
be
point.
an interesting case study, you know.
mean, I think, and even now, because when he comes into the gym, his first reaction when a good song is playing is he's, you know, his head bobbing and he starts dancing. Like, that would actually be very. I do believe that he will. I think he will pick up on it because. Just by his demeanor when he was, you know, before he even started walking, he was able to bob his head and listen to and go on the beat. Like, he had more of a beat than we did.
I agree. And I think it's going to be interesting to see it now that I'm an adult. But when I was a kid, my stepdad raised me and he played the drums. He worked in construction. There's certain things that he did, mannerisms that I took on, and he's my stepdad. You know, and I love construction. I loved the drums. You know, and there's just several things that my wife's like, you remind me of your stepdad. When I say something or I do something or whatever. So that's the nurture side of it.
Right.
And that's what you're going to end up seeing too.
Yeah, it would be kind of cool. Or he could grow up and be like, I hate that my whole family loves music. I hate hearing them sing all the time. You know, I don't know.
I hate the gym.
But what I
don't believe that.
What I will say is I don't know that any of my blood siblings, nephews, nieces, if I've ever met one of them that doesn't like singing. You know what I mean? So that's what's odd to me is if it was completely nurture, you would think some of them would have gone a different way. But I think there's something in the genes that that makes it a little.
Well, not necessarily. Well, it can be the genes, but for instance, you know, your son, you can, even though obviously it's a one-person case study, but his attitude and his demeanor when he hears the music, when he comes into the gym, mimicking your lifts. I can't see that I cannot see it changing.
Right. That's nurture.
And so that goes to show that, you know, the way he was born, the environment he was born in, he was taken out of the environment, he was put into this environment where it has the music influence, it has the positivity influence, it has the gym influence. I can't see it not, you know, going down that route.
You take
as long as you don't change. Now, I feel like, you know, being at his age now, obviously, you know, if he turns 7, 8, 9 years old and you start changing, you get out of music, you stop working out, then he'll follow that. I do believe that
he
too.
Still has time to follow that example. Well, you take a guy like Elvis, who was raised in the Black South, essentially. And that's where he got his music influence, his dance influences, you know, his soul that he became famous for. He brought like the, you know, middle class white kids and the black community together with music. You know, would that have happened had he been raised in a predominantly white community, in a different culture? Like, I just don't know. You know, now culture obviously transcends skin color, and Elvis is a great example of that. Yeah. But he was raised in that culture, in that the church choir, you know, culture, and you see how that affected his life. And so, I don't know, I think nurture definitely has a big role to play, but I think where it becomes dangerous is when people blame their nurturing, their upbringing, whatever, for decisions that they make. Right. You know, because interests, strengths, weaknesses, all of those sorts of things can come from nurture. I definitely believe that, but I don't think that's the end of the road. I mean, I think there's a lot of positive things that I picked up from my upbringing. I think there's a lot of negative that I've had to work through and continue to work through, but I don't think you can just lean on your upbringing as a crutch in life. No, I think that's where it gets dangerous.
So on that thought though, if you, let's say you have a mother and a father and siblings or whatever, and they're all overweight, and then you are like, I do not want to be overweight. The individual, that one individual in the family. You talk about nurture, nature, the environment they're in, the genetics they have, and all that. How does that play into that decision for that person to not want to be like that?
Well, I think, because I was actually going to say the same thing, but a different example, that kids that are raised or nurtured to be racist or to be, you know, prejudiced against others. There's been people that say, you know what, I don't want to be like this. So I think it goes in the same thing. How do they make that decision? I'm not sure. Is it the people they might be hanging around with? Is it the non-racist, the non-prejudiced, the non-fat or non-overweight, you know, non-obese? Is it influence?
Not that overweight people are as bad as racists.
No.
Just to be
what I'm
clear.
saying, just an example of how do they make it individually as the decision, or what brings them about that decision? That's a good question.
Well, I know you know a lot of people in the gym community who made the decision because of things like that. My whole family's overweight. My whole family has health problems, you know, whatever. I don't want that to be me. And they make completely different decisions. Not to dog on my family, but my family is so not into fitness at all, for the most part. And, you know, a few of us finally said, look, I'm not living my life like that. There's too many heart attacks in our family, too many health problems. And I have siblings who, you know, that kind of started at a young age for me. I got into sports and stuff. But I have siblings who lost a bunch of weight and maintained it. You know, my dad's lost a bunch of weight and has maintained it. You know, he had a heart attack and he decided I need to do something different. You know, so there's a switch that can be flipped. But I guess the way I describe it is, if you start on a shaky foundation, it's really hard to jump high. It's possible, but when the foundation's solid, you can jump a lot higher. And so the example in all these various aspects of life being set at home is so important as a launching pad for that child's life. It will just make it a lot easier, because the less you have to make conscious decisions to change your family tree and do something completely different, probably the better.
Yeah, because I'd probably say that I have a large percent of the family that's you know, just not in shape, don't work out. And I don't know what it was for me and my brother that really kind of kept us, you know, in fitness and working out. You know, it's one of those kind of things that you want to mentally think about to maybe be able to assist others or help others, but I don't remember. I know like I said, I've said it before, I always wanted to be a wrestler. I thought I wanted to be a wrestler, and all the wrestlers that I enjoyed watching were all the guys who were like super swole and strong, and like I didn't want to be like the Big Show and all these. I wanted to be like Stone Cold Steve Austin. I wanted to be like The Rock. I was like, these guys were in shape. I said maybe it was just that motivation. Maybe it's that nurturing, seeing them and
Right.
how cool they were.
Getting
and being
another
there.
influence. Because if you're never
Yeah.
introduced to anything else, you're probably never going to think outside that box.
Let me ask you this: mental health, and illness, and all that is a big thing right now. A lot of people are struggling with their mental health. Looking at nature and nurture, does mental health, is it nurture or is it nature or is it both? What are your thoughts?
I still think it's a combination of both, because even though there's been a lot of studies and research on those that are born with oh man, I can't think of the word. I just lost it. I hate to just generally say born with certain thoughts, but there's a term to it. I just can't think of it. It's a psychological term. So, but it can't be to the point where it can just completely overtake their whole thought process.
Like schizophrenia?
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously that's a example of it, but the description of having that, I can't think of it. But kind of like being, schizophrenic, bipolar. I mean, there's certain research that show that there's certain chemicals in the brain that some people have that don't. Can you nurture that person into a better state? Yes, but obviously it takes a lot more work. So that's why I believe that it could be a little bit of both. Because how about those people that may have been, let's say, nurtured into a certain way, became criminals, and then they're able to reform themselves? Do we know if they may have had a medical condition? I mean,
Well, it's one of those things, from a dumb Jim Bros perspective, there's obviously varying degrees of natural disadvantages. You can't nurture someone out of having Alzheimer's. You can't nurture someone out of schizophrenia or whatever. On these, shall I say, lesser issues, if we're just talking general mental health, wellness, those sorts of things, do certain people have more of a propensity towards certain issues?
Like addiction?
Yeah. I mean, I think yes, for sure, because we're all made different, and everybody's got strengths and weaknesses. But like anything else, because you have a propensity towards addiction does not justify substance abuse. Because you have a propensity towards greed does not justify theft. Because you have a propensity, So there are things that we can control. And so I think that nurture does play a big role on the mental side. I think somebody can be just naturally more inclined is the wrong word. Someone can have a propensity towards being a depressed person, but once you put them in a depressing situation, it gets really bad. And so, yeah, I'm sure it's a mixture of both.
I just thought about, I remember taking one of my psychology classes, and they showed a study of twins, and if one of the twins passed on, depending on the age that the twin passed away on, that the other twin had more of a chance to go down being either depressed, bipolar, even having learning disabilities. And you look at that instinct of where they had a connection with each other, and they were twins, they were born, and they were able to sense that their sibling had either passed away or died. Oh yeah, passed away and died, the same thing. I know, but I'm trying to think of another word. But
celebration of life.
And they were children that were basically exhibiting the signs of a depressed human, and they were babies. Never smiled, didn't want to eat. They were exhibiting signs of depression, and it was up until it was a certain age that they had, that the births were. Obviously, if they're a newborn coming out of the womb, it's a little bit different. But let's say they were 6, 7, 8, 9 months, together, and if one of the twins passed away, they all of a sudden they just saw the drop in their attitude. So to that kind of, it's kind of strange how it can answer to actually the nature and the nurture because they sensed it, they felt it, and they just got unhappy. They become depressed, and then when that becomes depressed and you don't do the right things to try to change it, then it's not, nurture. That's just in their nature. It happens.
Yeah, I tend to agree that nature and nurture, when you talk about mental health development or whatever, it can be in both. You have certain diseases like schizophrenia or depression or things of that nature that are something that may be nurture or nature, where it may be chemical imbalances that get passed to you as a child, autism or whatever. But then you have the nurture side, which is going to be stuff like traumatic events. If you witness a traumatic event, that's a nurture. That's an environmental change in your life, and then you're going to react to that, and that may cause some disorder or mental health issues or whatever on trauma, PTSD.
Even going
whatever,
through the adoption classes and everything that the state mandated, there were a lot of lessons on basically baby trauma, and the idea is a baby spends 9 months learning a heartbeat, learning a voice, learning the voice of the dad if he's talking to it, and all those sorts of things. The baby leaves the womb. Many of these children, obviously, who end up in foster care ended up, being born with drugs in their system, or they were abused as babies, or all those sorts of things. That's trauma. Then they get ripped away from that heartbeat and the voices they know and the environment they know and put into a new one. And that's more trauma. And so essentially what they say is, according to all of the studies, those kids have a higher risk for basically every negative mental health outcome you can think of. Now, that doesn't mean every single one of them. That doesn't mean there's not hope in their nurture and those sorts of things in their new home, but those are things you have to be aware of as the new parent taking on that child, is that even at that little infant stage, they have now picked up the trauma of their environment. So it's interesting you bring up the twin study. I would imagine it's very similar, where they get used to there being a twin. All 9 months they know that twin, and the cry next to them and all those sorts of things. And then if that twin passed away, then that would probably affect them in a very similar way. But all those things being said, I've also heard those classes make arguments like, well, you have to understand the trauma that your baby has faced, so if they throw tantrums in the store, you shouldn't correct them. You should ignore them and just let them have their tantrum, because that's just them responding to trauma. And that's where you lose me. Because me, as a grown person, I have trauma. I don't get to throw tantrums in the middle of Walmart.
Amen.
I have trauma. I don't get to commit crimes. The judge doesn't care how much trauma I have if I murder somebody or I rob a store or I whatever bad thing.
But they take into account, which I don't agree also, but, that's...
But it doesn't, to his point, though, it doesn't excuse the behavior.
No, for
Doesn't.
sure.
And as a parent, regardless of how much trauma they've faced, you still have to teach them right from wrong. You can do it in an understanding way. You can do it gently. You can, whatever, but behavior still has to be corrected. And I just think that's the weakness. In fact, I sat in a class one time, and hopefully they're not listening, but the instructor was explaining that with children with trauma especially, you should not impose consequences on them. You should teach through natural consequences. I said, what does that mean? Well, my son, for instance, not my son, her son, ripped the wallpaper off of our wall in a fit of rage.
That's impressive.
And his punishment was he had to help us re-wallpaper the wall. And I said, okay. Well, this guy next to me obviously is thinking the same thing as me, and he goes, so that doesn't affect them as an adult? Like, don't you need to learn imposed consequences? And she said, no. For instance, my oldest daughter has her first job. Well, actually, it's her second job. Her first job, her boss was mean or something. She didn't like that job. She had to leave. And I paused, and in my head, I'm going, I bet you he imposed a consequence. Maybe she had a mean boss. All I'm saying is, if you go your whole life with your parents not imposing consequences on you, you're going to find out really fast that employers impose consequences, police officers impose consequences. There are real life consequences to your actions. You don't just get to graffiti a wall and then, now I have to clean it up. I mean, you go to jail, right? So So I don't know that the nature versus nurture. We lost our co-host. I was hoping he'd pick it up after. I'm just rambling. I'm stalling.
Anyway, Taylor Swift won the Super Bowl. Did you watch the Super Bowl?
I did not watch the Super Bowl.
I did not either. I was in Nigeria.
I was in Hawaii.
How was your trip to Hawaii?
Hawaii was really good. We went to Big Island. They call it Big Island. I think it's technically Hawaii Island or whatever. But it's huge. So we traveled around for the week or so we were there and saw all different sides of the island, all the different climates they have, from snow to sunshine to rainforest to beaches to everything else. It was awesome.
Is there like a bunch of animals or like running around?
So I'm sure if you went deeper into the forests, there would be. The one animal I saw was a wild chicken.
Wild chicken?
I was walking to a waterfall and cluck, 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 cluck. Chicken just ran right by me. I was like, okay. No, but it was beautiful. The waterfalls and everything are just gorgeous. There's black rock everywhere. Obviously, it's a volcanic island. And we did this one trail basically to see a big crater, and you can look in the distance and just see steam coming from the ground where there's lava running through lava tubes and all of that. I've heard if you take one of the helicopter tours, which we didn't get to do, but if you take a helicopter tour at night or whatever, you can actually see down the cracks in the ground and see the glow of the lava and all that. So
I forget what movie. I think it's like a Mount St. Helen movie, but I remember this couple goes into like a spring or something, and
they burn up
because the water was so hot.
Oh, that's horrible.
Yeah.
Why don't you remind him about that? And you wanted him to go swimming there?
We were talking about another subject. So
Hey, Alex.
we were talking while you had a spring flowing out of your person.
Hey, I'm on a wake up. I'm having to drink a lot of salt and water, and it is getting me
How
bad.
do you drink salt?
Salt and water? How do I drink salt?
Oh, you're
and water?
drinking salt water. Gotcha.
Yeah,
Why
salt
would you
water.
get salt water?
It's going to help dehydrate me, and it makes me use the restroom more because I'm cutting weight. Yeah, I know.
Alex. So,
Yes, sir.
what you were talking about earlier, did you know the Bible said if you don't discipline your kids, you hate them? Did you know that?
If you don't discipline your kids, you hate them. Is that really?
The Bible says
Bible?
that. Multiple places, actually.
I have to confirm with my Bible expert.
You got a Bible?
Yeah. What?
Did you find the $100 bill I put in there?
Yeah. Thank you.
No, you did not.
Appreciate
You haven't
it.
opened it once.
What? Are you kidding me?
What?
I have 3 Bibles I've been reading off. I already told you that.
What?
Hey, it's really helped me a lot. But I'm going to look for that one because discipline, and I think in my Hispanic culture, I agree, but I don't agree with it because I think we were raised with just straight discipline and the fact that we were whooped but never explained why. And then I think the main reason I went into child psychology in college was because I was like, something ain't right. Like I don't believe that all my cousins and everybody, all of us should be like whooped. But sometimes we don't even know what we were whooped. We just take a spanking for it. And I think we've had a discussion about that one time of like explaining to your kids, and I think that goes into the nature nurture conversation about of how you should know what you're doing. But I do believe in discipline. But I believe in a balance of it.
With discipline, tell us what happened here recently with you and some of these basketball moms?
Definitely not. I have no idea what you're talking about.
I'll tell the story.
No. So are you saying that I should be disciplined for that? I mean,
I don't know. Maybe Miss Johnson needs the discipline.
yeah, we can change
Okay,
the
so
names
before
out.
we get there,
No, we're not getting there, man. If they listen to it, I
That's a
will
great
be gone.
story.
No, it's not. That is not. I'm willing to share everything in my life, but that was bad.
Okay, share
That's a
something else
bad-
then.
That was
so
bad,
story time with
Alejandro.
Alex will be coming up in a few minutes. Stay tuned.
What?
But on the discipline topic, do you know what
Okay, I will.
a disciple is?
Yes.
You know what that means?
Yes.
What does that mean?
So the disciples of or the Jesus following, or like the followers.
So
of
those
Jesus?
are disciples of Jesus, but like
Right.
the concept of a disciple in general. what that
I
means.
just thought it meant as a follower, like somebody who you follow, somebody you believe in.
Basically. So it comes from Jewish tradition. Those are the
Think of the root word is what he's getting to.
Jewish people, the Holocaust, that was bad and everything. So the Jewish people,
Right?
right?
Albert Einstein thought so. That's why he left. Albert Einstein was actually a Nazi, but he wanted to get out of it. So he was probably nurtured into being a Nazi lover, and then he decided
Chose
on his
to go
own
against
to change it. And
his
then,
nurturing.
Albert Einstein.
So in Jewish tradition, they've got rabbis. Those are their
Rabbis,
religious
yeah.
leaders. The idea of a disciple is kind of the best of the graduating class of their college, let's say, college-age people. The top of those classes could go and disciple under a rabbi for religious studies. The idea would then be to someday become a rabbi. So they wanted to learn and essentially mimic their rabbi. Their goal was not to just learn some things. Their goal was to be them, right? So when Jesus gets his disciples and tells us that we are to be disciples, it carries a weight that we're not just listening to what he says, but we want to be like him, right? Mm-hmm. The root word of disciple and the root word of discipline are the same. The idea of disciplining, let's start with yourself. I'm going to discipline my body. I'm going to discipline myself to go to the gym every day. What I'm doing is practicing a lifestyle. Because following Jesus, for instance, is not just listening to his words. It's to practice a lifestyle to be like him, right? You're disciplining yourself to be his disciple. Yeah. If you're disciplining your child, that doesn't just mean hit them. It means you are trying to mold them into a lifestyle, right? They are your disciples by nature of you being their parent. Mm-hmm. And part of that may include physical punishment, but the idea is you're trying to mold a character.
Or putting up wallpaper.
Yeah, or putting back up wallpaper and letting them suffer the natural consequences of their decisions.
Tearing it down.
But if you think about it that way, it changes the idea. You know, now Proverbs does talk about the rod of correction. That may be necessary, but the idea of discipline goes far beyond that. Discipline is a daily thing, and it includes when they do good, and you are praising them for that because you want to encourage that behavior, and it also includes correcting bad behavior. And you think about that, and it becomes way more holistic than let me throw something at them.
A chancla.
My
throw chancla at us. Yeah.
My sister slammed the door one time in our house, and my dad made her open and close the door 500 times. We also used to have to write sentences. So like
I remember writing sentences.
I left the water running one time, and we lived in an RV, and it filled up the tanks, and it flooded in our RV, and I had to write 2,000 sentences. I will not leave the water running.
I think I'd rather close the door than. Yeah, I don't know.
2,000 sentences when you only get 27 lines per page.
Yeah, I remember that.
It's a
Remember
lot of
that
pages.
used to be pretty popular in
Crazy.
Hey, remember that used to be pretty popular in school. If you got reprimanded by your teacher, they would say write 500, write 1,000.
That's
sentence,
a 14,000 word essay.
Yeah, I will not leave the water running. I will leave the water
You know,
running.
You can't even do two sentences, bro.
So, hey, what would you do?
Starts
Would you do the way
abbreviating.
I used to do it? You just go, I.
All the L's were.
Yeah. You know, I used to have a friend that when we would get in trouble together, he would actually write each sentence. He was like, it's faster. I'm like, no, it's not. Just go straight down. So he was probably nurtured to believe that.
I
that
bet
was
you it's
easier.
not faster, but I bet it splits
breaks-
up the work in your mind.
Yeah. And it doesn't make
going there.
it
It's
makes
kind of
it
like
less
when you
monotonous.
mow the lawn, and instead of doing one giant lap around the yard, you split it into sections. It just makes you feel like it's going faster.
It's the same amount of
You've
time.
never mowed a lawn?
I go and I do the circle. I feel like it's shorter.
Okay, bud.
Well, I mean, that's going to show I'm not a
What?
true Hispanic. I don't know how. Are you saying you go up and down like this?
No. Okay, well, to be fair, you're probably talking about a fairly small yard. But like growing up, I mowed like an acre or two at a time. And so I would take sections, the front yard, the backyard, this part of the yard, that part of the yard, this side of the barn, that side of the barn, whatever. And you break it up into sections, it just seems like it goes way faster.
Sometimes we'd throw a football.
Yep.
And you'd crash into the garage.
That did not happen. I am not liable for damages.
Okay, well, at least
I
somebody
did
has something.
ride a mower while throwing a football and run into the house.
That's pretty awesome.
So now let's have a moment with Alex.
Now, what's story time this week?
I heard your daughter's in championship.
Okay, let's not mention about any kids or anything. So let's just say that what had happened
Ms.
was,
Johnson does not watch this podcast.
man, I don't know. So basically, I was left the responsibility to create some items for a team.
Some t-shirts.
And Jonathan, be quiet. And during the whole communication of a lot of people communicating with me,
Some large people.
I thought that I was communicating with my wife on a certain individual that
Ms.
I
Johnson.
didn't have something nice to say because I thought something different. So I texted my wife and was like, yo, can you believe this, this, and that? Well, I did not text my wife. It was to the group chat.
So there's just a lot of vagueness in the story. I'm not really understanding. So
I think what you told us was,
Oh, man. Yeah, so all the parents text, I basically
so everyone
made a
was
comment
texting their size of their T-shirt.
of their shirts, and I basically did not agree with the size of a shirt that one of the parents asked for.
And so he
And
thought
I-
he was texting his wife.
And I thought I was texting my wife saying, can you believe that this person's asking for this size? They are not this size.
And he
and
put
then
a,
she-
he put a
Look, I'm scratching myself. 'Cause I'm so. And then I was like,
he attached a little image of a fat kid rolling down the stairs or something.
I know. And then I was like, I wonder why my wife hasn't responded back. I thought that was kind of funny. Oh, it wasn't to her. And when I say that, yeah, I'm still in shock. I mean, y'all know that I don't have no problem not talking about things, but that was bad. If you've ever text something to somebody you know you're not supposed to, you're not saying something nice, how do you feel?
Did
like
you apologize?
No. I thought about the WWJD. What would Michael Jonathan do? I lied, and then I completely tried to change the subject.
First of all, it's WWMJD.
JD. Okay, yeah, Michael goes first.
And then you lied. We wouldn't have done that.
I know, that's what I'm saying. That I didn't have no choice.
So I did something not near as bad, but I did something
Shit.
fairly serious or fairly similar a couple months ago. So wrote the song Strength Like This, went to California, filmed a whole music video. I was waiting like a little kid on Christmas Eve for the edited version to come back. I was so excited for it. Finally, I get these stills, right? So let me turn the brightness up. So, it's me with a bald head sitting in the dark room, as I do. Another one, more dramatic. One real close up on my face with all the blood. All right. So I go, oh, that's so cool. Let me send it to my team. There were 2 guys who helped me on that project. So I take those 2 pictures. I send it. I go, y'all ready for the music video on Friday? Similar. It's like, they're normally pretty fast to respond. I sent it to my whole platoon.
See, you could have shared that with me the other day.
As I saw
too.
it, because I was at work at the time with all these people around me. Nobody had looked. I look down. I go, no! How did you delete a message?
Yeah.
That was a mistake because instantly everybody looked to see what I was trying to delete. And one of my NCOs went, screenshot? Immediately. So I just barely deleted it after he got the screenshot. So he immediately resent the screenshot back to the group. And I just got roasted the rest of the day. At the end of each day in the military, you get, at the end of a weekend, like on a Friday night before the weekend, you'll get a safety brief. And it's basically your first sergeant telling you, don't do stupid crap. You're still on military orders until midnight. Don't get yourself in trouble. I don't want to bail you out of jail. So he sits there. He does all of that. Don't beat your wife. Don't beat your dog. And turns it over to the platoons. My platoon sergeant goes, all right, guys, next month, be back at this time. We're doing PT, yada, yada. What else? Fleming has a music video dropping Friday. Don't forget. So
That's way more
Friday at
positive, though.
midnight, everybody gets on the group me. Fleming, what's the link to the video? How do I go? Immediately.
Thanks for turning something so negative into positive, Jonathan.
So I
I was
so
so
my
mad.
story is actually
What's so mad? That worked out
I
perfectly.
was so mad.
my story is I was actually the recipient of something that wasn't supposed to go to me. I was fishing in Louisiana, and I was on a project, working on a project. I was a PM of a facility we're building in San Antonio, and we were having issues with this plumber. This plumber was not doing a good job. And anyways, he had called me when I was out on the water, because when I got back, I had a 2.5 minute voicemail. And so I listened to it when I get back to the truck, and he's just like, hey, call me. Got to figure out these issues so I can get this job done. It's eating my lunch, all this. He's not happy, but he's just ready to get off the job. So then you hear him, like, shuffle around, and he thinks he hung up. Then you hear him, like, open a door and shut a door, and then he's the secretary in the back. You can hear this little lady, and she's like, what's wrong? He's like, just looking to blank things up. And then he's just like, what happened? And then he's like, that Michael so-and-so. He just laid into what he thought about me and all these things. And the problem, it's funny because the problem wasn't even with me. It's the engineer who was reviewing his product data and all that. So it wasn't even me. I was just the middleman passing on information, which is more funny. But he just railed off and he's talking about how he's going to do things with the project and all this stuff. And then at the end, you like, you hear him stop like mid-sentence, and I think that's when he realized he was being recorded. And he's like, I have anger management issues I need to go get solved. And then click, that's it.
So that's all I had to do? I got anger management issues, and I got to go get things solved. That's all I had to do.
I don't know. So I forwarded it to the superintendent. I said, you need to have a conversation with him.
You actually, wait. I mean, was that right for you to do? I mean, are you a snitch, or does that make you fall along the lines of a snitch? Like, that dude had anger issues. He was probably nurtured into the way he was. You could have helped him.
Again, the real world doesn't care what you were nurtured into.
And you were continue listening. You should have been like, oh, he must not know that.
He never spoke to me again.
How'd you record it?
He left me a voicemail.
So he sent.
Why
the
don't you
voicemail.
delete it? That's wrong with you. He was having issues.
I would have held on to that.
Hey.
I would have burned it on a CD, kept it on my car to listen to.
I wanted to get an audio file, drop it on a USB, and then mail it to him.
Oh, Jesus.
He was making fun of my like degrees. Like, I don't even know what kind of degree this kid's got. Blah, blah,
Who
blah.
has
So
construction management?
I was gonna mail him a copy of my diploma
Construction management degree.
That's what he knew. But
Hey, so all I know is I failed probably 100%. That's why I love you guys. 150% better that, yeah. I'm not the only one who messes up. That dude made a mistake. You made a mistake by recording it. You made a mistake. Like,
I didn't make a mistake recording it. What do you mean?
Yeah, you shouldn't have recorded that, man. That guy
They left me a voicemail.
You should have deleted it.
Why?
You should have deleted it and go in there to forward to anybody else. At least I didn't do something that dumb. Not on you, but on his part.
That's
made
pretty
fun
bad,
of
bro.
somebody's size.
Yeah, it was bad.
The worst one out of the three was Alex's.
No, that's not. No, you are crazy, James.
And that was a toned down version of that story.
Yes.
Compared to the guy leaving the voicemails and talking mess about you, that's way worse.
No, I love the part of the story you left out where you ran to your wife and like, I meant up.
I was like, I need to leave. Can you hide me?
And then you went and knocked on your daughter's door and told her, and she's like, no way. And she's pacing back in her
You're
bedroom.
like, I can't go to your games anymore.
I was already.
I'm moving out.
I was ready to pack up and leave. I said, this is it. That was embarrassing. That was embarrassing.
Yeah.
When's
the next game?
This Saturday. So we're going to see how that goes.
Don't tell us on air, but we're going to go and bring signs from Ms. Johnson.
That's all. I'll go.
Wait, by the time this episode comes out, will the game already be done?
No,
Yes.
yeah,
Oh, then when is it? This Saturday?
this Saturday, 4:30. We can go.
When is it this Saturday?
Hey, no, I
Saturday,
need backup.
4:30. Here's
I need
the
to
address.
make sure you bring your AR. Make sure you bring your Glock.
Yeah, I'm
'cause-
going to walk into a school with an AR-15. That's a
What?
great idea.
No,
Intro.
No, Jonathan. Leave
Just
it in your
that
car
clip.
first.
I'm gonna walk in
Leave it in your car first.
Ah, surprise.
Yeah, because she for sure gonna shank me.
Hold on, I'm trying to give you guys a good thumbnail.
Yeah.
Yeah, she for sure gonna shank me. Thanks, Mike. Man, they're gonna find me. For me, it was too soon to talk about. We should have let a few weeks. I need to see her again before I can
By the
actually
time this
talk
gets
about
dropped,
Oh, wait,
it's
no.
gonna be
The
way
title,
after.
Jonathan Brings Guns to a School, and it's just me.
it. Yeah. We should have waited until 2 weeks because I need to see them. I'm going to see them on Thursday. I'm going to see them on Saturday. And
I'm dropping it today before Friday. Before Saturday. Yeah.
And sending it to Miss Johnson.